Welcome back to another edition of Between Two Fars. All right, so I know you have just been notified that your procurement has been appealed to the GAO and you are under a bid protest for your award decision. What happens? I mean, we know what we need to do. We've got a short amount of time to turn around a lot of documentation, but what's going on behind the walls of the GAO? What are they doing with the bid protest that first 30-day period? Well, today we are joined by Young Cho. And while she is currently a senior attorney advisor here at NASA headquarters, previously, in her previous life, she worked for the GAO. She was a deputy administrative assistant attorney, right? A deputy administrative.
Deputy Assistant General Counsel.
Thank you. Deputy Assistant General Counsel. And actually was working bid protest issues inside the GAO. So we're just going to sort of grill her a little bit on the basic procedures. What happens when that bid protest is filed? What does the GAO do with it?
So, like what we do here, right? You get the protest. Well, before you actually get the protest, it will come to Scott Barber at headquarters, and there's a process, right? It takes a couple days for you to actually get your protest, right? Same at the GAO. Now with EPDS, the protest does come through the EPDS system, and it gets distributed to eventually the writing attorney who will get the protest. Now that process could take, sometimes it's a day, maybe it's a day or two. There might be holidays, there might be weekends, but the first person to get the protest at GAO will eventually distribute it to different groups within the GAO, and those will and the group, the head of the group will determine which attorney to assign the protest to.
What sort of factors do they think about when deciding who gets which bid protest?
So, again, a lot of it is workload balancing, like anywhere else. When you're working on your protest, it does take up your entire world, right? During that 30-day period or more. But for the GAO attorneys, they have a docket of cases, and we think, they have that 100-day deadline, and it would be nice if everything was worked sequentially, but it's not. So there's some balancing that has to be done within a group to determine who to assign the case to. So you look at that, but also the complexity of the case. Right? Some protests are a little more challenging than others. And so I think you also, a manager will look at the composition of their group, because each group has a mix of different levels, different attorneys in them. There are some more junior attorneys, there are some folks that have been there a very long time. And so there's a lot of balancing that goes on, right? Is it really complex? Do I want to give my attorney a case that has a particular protest issue? This person may not have had an OCI case. Maybe we should give them the OCI case. Or this is a very complex looking OCI case. Maybe we should give it to someone more senior. So again, it's like any other organization where you have to figure out, okay, who gets what.
Yeah.
For example, procurement, right? Like how do our managers know which which attorney to assign a procurement to? So
when that writing attorney gets the bid protest, and it sounds like they'll be looking at it before our deadline to file all of our stuff.
Yeah.
What are they doing with that bid protest between the time they get it and when they get NASA's package of documentation and arguments? What do they think about? Do they even look at it?
I know I looked at all of my protests, and I know my colleagues, I think most of my colleagues do, again, unless you're completely swamped. I think most attorneys will be looking at the protest when it comes in. So that they'll have actually, read it. Now, the thing with protests is it's only one side of the story. You're getting a protester's version of what they think happened in a procurement. So GAO will read it, or the writing attorney at GAO will read it, and no one's really making any snap judgments because sometimes the documents aren't even there, which really doesn't help the situation. But even when the documents are there, you don't have everything, right?
Yeah.
And so until you get that agency response, it's really hard to come to a conclusion that quickly. So, but back to your question, yes, they will have probably read it. And again, we all process information or do work differently. So some folks do, will go into it a little bit more. They will actually, try to look at some of the issues. But no, it tell you more, Nikki, like they will have looked at it. Now, you did mention the filing of the protest to the point of when an agency report comes in, right?
And I've
Now,
got some questions for you about thoughts on agency reports and
yeah.
what might be good, what might be bad, what might be helpful
Mhm.
for that writing attorney to look at.
Mhm.
Would you mind coming back for another episode and talking to us a little bit about your ideas about the agency report?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll come back again for another edition of Between Two Fars.